The Galactic Empire's Challenge. The Galactic Empire was a force feared across the universe. Their warships, sleek and menacing, had conquered countless planets, leaving destruction and submission in their wake. No species had ever dared to stand against them, and those who tried were crushed within days. Their latest target was a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, Earth. The Empire's fleet entered the solar system with a show of power. Hundreds of ships, each armed with weapons capable of obliterating continents, surrounded Earth. The flagship, Dominion of Stars, hovered menacingly, its dark hull absorbing the light of the sun. On board, Commander Xerion, a seasoned leader known for his ruthless tactics, stared at the planet below with cold eyes. "This is their home," Xerion sneered, his voice echoing in the massive command room. "Primitive, weak. They won't last a day." A junior officer hesitated before replying. "Yes, Commander, but reports suggest their technology is unusual." "Unusual? What could a backwater species like this possibly have that we haven't seen before?" Xerion dismissed the comment with a wave. "Prepare the transmission. Let's give them the chance to kneel before their new masters." Across Earth, people watched as the sky lit up with alien ships. Panic gripped the world as the Empire broadcast its message. The hologram of Commander Xerion appeared in the skies of every major city, his cold, metallic voice sending shivers down spines. "Humans of Earth," he began, his tone dripping with arrogance. "You stand before the Galactic Empire, the greatest force this galaxy has ever known. Surrender now, and you may live as subjects under our rule. Resist, and your planet will be reduced to ash." The transmission ended, and silence fell over Earth. People expected their leaders to respond with desperate pleas or hurried preparations for war. Instead, hours passed with no official statement. The Empire grew impatient. On the Dominion of Stars, Xerion frowned. Why haven't they responded? Are they so terrified they've gone mute? "Perhaps, Commander," the junior officer suggested, "or perhaps they are planning something." Before Xerion could reply, a new transmission came through, this time from Earth. The screen in the command room flickered to life, revealing a human diplomat sitting calmly in an office. He wore a simple suit and smiled faintly, as if he were speaking to an old friend rather than the leader of an invading fleet. "Greetings, Commander Xerion," the man said, his voice steady. "I am James Carter, representative of Earth. We've received your message." "And your answer?" Xerion demanded, leaning forward with a smirk. "Do you accept your fate?" Carter chuckled softly, a sound that caught Xerion off guard. "Commander, your presence is impressive. Truly. But I must ask, do you really think this is a good idea?" Xerion blinked, his smirk fading. "What kind of response is that?" "The kind that suggests you may have underestimated us," Carter replied, still smiling. "We're not as helpless as you seem to think." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command room in stunned silence. Xerion's fists clenched. "How dare they mock us? Prepare the fleet for an immediate show of force. Let's remind them who they're dealing with." As the Empire's ships began to reposition for an attack, strange readings appeared on their sensors. Energy fluctuations were detected across Earth's surface, patterns the Empire had never seen before. They weren't weapon signatures, but they weren't harmless either. It was as if the planet itself was awakening. "Commander," a technician called out, his voice trembling. "There's something strange about these energy signals. They don't match any known technology." "Then analyze them," Xerion barked. "I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before we strike." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the people were surprisingly calm. News reports showed images of the alien ships, but instead of fear, there was a growing sense of curiosity and even humor. Social media was flooded with memes mocking the Empire, and videos of people waving at the sky and saying, "Welcome to Earth, good luck," went viral. In the shadows, humanity's leaders met in secret, their expressions serious. They knew the Empire wouldn't leave without a fight, but they also knew something the Empire didn't. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Hidden beneath the surface of the planet were weapons and technologies far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. As the Empire's fleet loomed above, humanity's true strength remained a mystery. But one thing was clear: this was no ordinary conquest. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake in underestimating the laughter of humanity. And soon, they would learn why. The unlikely answer. Commander Xerion paced the command room of the Dominion of Stars, his boots clicking against the polished floor. The calm, almost mocking tone of the human diplomat's response replayed in his mind like an itch he couldn't scratch. The humans were supposed to be trembling, begging for mercy. Instead, they had laughed. "Commander," the junior officer interrupted hesitantly, "the fleet is in position. Should we initiate the first strike?" Xerion stopped pacing and turned to the officer, his eyes cold and calculating. "Not yet. There's something wrong here. A species like this shouldn't be so confident. I want answers." Just as he finished speaking, another transmission from Earth interrupted the room. The screen flickered to life, showing James Carter again. This time, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood several people, all dressed in casual attire. One of them held a coffee cup. They didn't look like warriors preparing for battle. They looked like office workers on their lunch break. "Commander Xerion," Carter began, the same faint smile on his face, "we noticed your fleet repositioning. Are you planning something exciting?" Xerion gritted his teeth. "Enough games, human. Your species stands on the brink of annihilation. Surrender now, and I might consider sparing your planet." Annihilation. Carter tilted his head, pretending to think. Yes, that's a serious word. But you see, Commander, we've done a bit of thinking ourselves. And we've decided. No. Xerion echoed, stunned. "That's right," Carter said cheerfully. "We've decided not to surrender. In fact, we've decided to give you a little advice. Turn around and go home." Laughter erupted from the group behind Carter, as if he'd just told the funniest joke in the universe. Xerion's fists clenched. He wasn't used to being mocked, let alone by a primitive species. "You dare mock the Empire?" he roared, his voice booming across the room. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Actually, we do," Carter replied, his tone growing serious. The laughter in the background ceased, and the screen zoomed in on his face. "We've studied you, Commander. Your weapons, your tactics, even your weaknesses. And let me tell you, this little invasion of yours, it's not going to go the way you think." Before Xerion could respond, the transmission cut off. For the second time, the humans had left him with more questions than answers. He slammed his fist on the console, furious. "Commander," the junior officer spoke cautiously, "perhaps we should proceed with caution. The humans seem prepared." "Prepared?" Xerion spat. "They're bluffing. They must be." But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. The humans weren't acting like any species the Empire had encountered before. They weren't afraid. If anything, they seemed to be enjoying this. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the command room. A technician shouted, "Commander, we're detecting a new signal from Earth." "What kind of signal?" Xerion demanded. "It's music, sir," the technician replied, baffled. "Music?" Xerion's confusion turned to anger. "Patch it through." The sound filled the command room, an upbeat, cheerful tune with a steady beat. It was unlike anything the Empire had ever heard. The lyrics were in a human language, but the tone was unmistakable. It was defiance. The song ended with a loud collective cheer, followed by a voice saying, "This one's for you, Galactic Empire. Hope you enjoy the show." Xerion stared at the screen, his mind racing. What kind of species responded to a military invasion with music and laughter? Were they insane? Or was this part of some larger strategy? Commander, the junior officer interrupted again, his voice shaking. Our long-range sensors are picking up unusual activity near the human fleet. Their ships are powering up, but not in any way we've seen before. Xarian's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Their energy readings don't match any known weapon systems, the officer explained. It's as if they're toying with us. Xarian's doubt grew, but he refused to show it. Deploy the scouts. I want to know exactly what those ships are capable of, and prepare for an attack. If they think they can intimidate us, they're about to learn what true power looks like. As the Empire's scouts moved closer to the human fleet, strange phenomena began to occur. Their instruments malfunctioned, and their communications were filled with static. One by one, the scouts reported back the same message. The humans are not what we thought. But before they could elaborate, the transmissions went silent. Back on the Dominion of Stars, Xarian stared at the reports, his jaw tightening. The humans weren't just resisting. They were playing a game the Empire didn't understand. And for the first time in his career, Commander Xarian felt a sliver of fear. Whatever the humans were hiding, it was about to change everything. The first encounter. The Galactic Empire's fleet loomed in formation, an overwhelming testament to their power. The stars themselves seemed to vanish behind the vast Armada, but beneath their imposing presence, Earth's small fleet of ships remained motionless. From the bridge of the Dominion of Stars, Commander Xarian observed the scene, his impatience growing. Scouts are reporting anomalies, the junior officer informed, his voice hesitant. Their ships, they don't follow standard designs. No visible weapons, no detectable shielding, and yet. Xarian snapped. The officer swallowed hard. The closer our scouts get, the more their systems malfunction. It's as if their ships are doing something to them. Enough speculation, Xarian barked. Deploy the first strike squadron. Let's see how these primitives handle the might of the Empire. The order was relayed, and a dozen Imperial fighters streaked through space, their sleek hulls reflecting the faint light of distant stars. They approached the human fleet cautiously, their weapons locked and ready. The humans still didn't move. Commander, a technician called out, his voice tight with tension. We're getting strange readings from the enemy ships. Their power levels are rising, but there's no indication of weapon activation. Xarian narrowed his eyes. Let them rise. It won't save them. The Imperial fighters opened fire. Blazing energy beams streaked toward the human ships, aimed to cripple rather than destroy. But the moment the beams made contact, something extraordinary happened. The energy didn't explode against the hulls. Instead, it bent and dissipated, vanishing into the void as though absorbed by the ships themselves. The human vessels remained unscathed. What is this? Xarian demanded, his fists tightening around the edge of the command console. Are they shielded? No, sir, the technician replied, his voice filled with disbelief. It's not a shield. It's something else. The energy isn't being blocked. It's being consumed. Consumed. Xarian's voice dropped to a growl. That's impossible. The Imperial fighters, confused but undeterred, launched a second volley. This time, the human ships reacted. Their hulls pulsed with a faint blue light, and without warning, the energy from the Empire's weapons was reflected back, not as a chaotic blast, but as precise, targeted beams. The first fighter was struck before the pilot could react. Its systems shut down instantly, and the ship drifted lifelessly through space. One by one, the remaining fighters were disabled in the same manner. There were no explosions, no deaths, just silent, calculated precision. From the Dominion of Stars, Xarian watched in stunned silence as his squadron was neutralized. The human ships had moved so smoothly, so deliberately, it was as if they were toying with the Empire. Commander, the junior officer said, his voice trembling. "We've lost contact with the first strike team. They're all offline." "Impossible," Xerion hissed. He slammed his fist on the console. "Send the second wave. Overwhelm them with numbers." Before the order could be carried out, the human fleet moved. It wasn't a typical maneuver. The ships didn't advance in a straight line or form a standard formation. Instead, they weaved through space in patterns that defied logic, their movements so precise they seemed choreographed. As they closed the distance, a transmission came through. The screen on the Dominion of Stars flickered to life, showing James Carter once again. This time, he wasn't smiling. His face was calm, his eyes sharp. "Commander Xerion," Carter began, his voice steady. "I warned you, but you chose not to listen. You think you've won." Xerion spat, his composure cracking. "This is nothing but a fluke. The Empire cannot be defeated by primitives like you." "Primitives?" Carter raised an eyebrow. "You really don't understand, do you? Humanity isn't like the other species you've conquered. We've seen darkness. We've survived our own destruction. And now we've learned to turn our greatest weaknesses into strengths." As Carter spoke, the human ships emitted a low-frequency hum that resonated across the Empire's fleet. The sound wasn't loud, but it was unnerving. Imperial sensors lit up with chaotic data, their systems unable to process the patterns emanating from the human ships. "Commander," the technician interrupted, panic in his voice. "Our systems are being compromised. We're losing control off." Before he could finish, the lights on the Dominion of Stars flickered, and the command room was plunged into darkness. Emergency systems activated, bathing the room in a dim red glow. "Status report," Xerion shouted, his voice echoing in the chaos. "Commander, it's the humans," the junior officer replied, his face pale. "They've infiltrated our systems. They're laughing at us." Sure enough, the low hum was replaced by a distorted recording of human laughter. It echoed through the Empire's ships, mocking them. For the first time, Xerion felt a cold knot of fear in his chest. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were sending a message. And the Galactic Empire had no idea what they were up against. Humanity strikes back. The Dominion of Stars floated in eerie silence, its once flawless systems now plagued by glitches and failures. Commander Xerion gripped the edges of the command console, his knuckles pale. The mocking laughter echoing through his fleet's communication channels was worse than any weapon, an insult that pierced his pride and shook his confidence. "Shut it off," Xerion barked. "I want that noise gone." "We're trying, Commander," the technician stammered, his fingers flying across the controls. "But it's embedded in our systems. Every time we block it, it evolves." "Evolves." Xerion's voice dropped to a growl. "You're telling me it's alive?" "It might as well be," the technician muttered. "It's adaptive." Xerion's jaw tightened. He had underestimated the humans. This wasn't just advanced technology. It was something far more dangerous. The humans were playing a game the Empire didn't even know existed. "Commander," the junior officer interrupted, "the human fleet is moving again. Their ships are breaking formation and heading straight for us." "Are they firing weapons?" Xerion demanded. "No, sir," the officer replied, his voice trembling. "But their power levels are increasing exponentially. It's like they're charging something." Xerion's instincts screamed at him to retreat, but his pride wouldn't allow it. "They're bluffing," he said through gritted teeth. "They don't have the firepower to take on the entire fleet. All ships, hold your positions." But as the human ships advanced, their strange patterns of movement continued to baffle the Empire's sensors. They didn't follow predictable trajectories. Instead, they spiraled, darted, and pivoted with precision that seemed almost organic. It was as if the ships were alive, each one acting with its own intelligence. "Commander," the junior officer said again, his voice now edged with fear, I think they're targeting us." Let them come, Xarian snarled. Prepare to. Before he could finish, the lights flickered again, and the hum returned, louder this time. It reverberated through the hull of the Dominion of Stars, a low, vibrating sound that seemed to resonate with the very metal of the ship. Commander, the technician shouted, our weapons systems are offline. Shields are dropping. Impossible. Xarian roared. How are they doing this without firing a single shot? The answer came moments later. One of the human ships broke away from the fleet and hovered just outside the Empire's formation. Its hull glowed faintly, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the Empire's ships began to shut down, one by one. It started with the smaller frigates, their engines sputtering before going dark. The larger cruisers followed, their lights flickering as their systems failed. The Empire's fleet was being dismantled, not with weapons, but with precision strikes to their technology. On the bridge of the Dominion of Stars, Xarian's fury turned to dread. What are they doing? He whispered, more to himself than anyone else. They're disabling us. The technician replied, his voice hollow. They're taking us apart without firing a single shot. Commander, the junior officer said, his face pale, we're receiving another transmission. It's the humans. Put it through, Xarian growled. I want to hear what they have to say. The screen flickered to life, and James Carter appeared once again. This time, his expression was somber, almost apologetic. Commander Xarian, Carter began, you've seen what we can do. We've disabled a portion of your fleet as a demonstration. No one was harmed, and no lives were lost. That's how we prefer to fight, without unnecessary destruction. Xarian clenched his fists. You think this is a victory. You've only delayed the inevitable. The Empire will. Will what? Carter interrupted, his tone sharp. Send reinforcements. Launch another attack. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Commander. Humanity isn't like the other species you've conquered. We don't fight the way you do. We've evolved. Evolved. Xarian scoffed. You're still just primitives playing with fire. Carter leaned forward, his eyes cold. Primitives? Perhaps. But these primitives have just brought your fleet to its knees without firing a single weapon. And if you don't leave now, we'll make sure you never leave at all. The transmission ended, leaving the command room in tense silence. Xarian stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. The humans had outmaneuvered him at every turn. Their technology was beyond anything the Empire had encountered, and their tactics were unlike anything he'd ever faced. Commander, the junior officer said quietly, what are your orders? Xarian hesitated, his pride warring with the cold reality of the situation. For the first time in his career, he didn't have an answer. The Empire had never faced an enemy like this before. Hold the line, he said finally, his voice heavy. We're not done yet. But deep down, Xarian knew the truth. The Empire's reign of dominance was being challenged, not by weapons, but by the ingenuity and defiance of humanity. The secret weapon. The bridge of the Dominion of Stars was a place of tension and fear, a rare and unwelcome sensation for the Empire's elite officers. Commander Xarian stood at the center of the chaos, his composure unraveling as reports poured in. The human fleet had neutralized nearly half of his armada without a single casualty. The once dominant Galactic Empire was faltering, and it was Xarian's job to restore control. Commander, the junior officer called out, his voice strained. Our systems are still compromised. The humans seem to be using a form of quantum interference to disable our ships. Quantum interference. Xarian's tone was sharp. How could a primitive species develop quantum-based technology? This isn't possible. Impossible or not, it's happening, the officer replied, sweat beading on his forehead. And, sir, we've detected a new anomaly. Xarian's eyes narrowed. What anomaly? The officer hesitated, glancing at the technician for confirmation before continuing. It's their flagship. It's unlike any of their other ships. We couldn't detect it before because it's cloaked. Cloaked, Xerion growled, his voice low and dangerous. "Show me." The technician pulled up a visual, and the main screen displayed an ominous shape materializing in the midst of the human fleet. It was sleek and angular, its dark hull shimmering with an energy field that seemed alive. Unlike the other human ships, this one radiated power, a power that made Xerion uneasy. "That's their flagship?" he asked, his voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. "Yes, Commander," the technician confirmed. "Its energy readings are off the charts. We've never seen anything like it." Before Xerion could respond, the flagship moved. It glided through space with an elegance that seemed almost supernatural. The rest of the human fleet adjusted their positions, forming a protective formation around it. The message was clear. This ship was the heart of their operation. A new transmission interrupted the scene. James Carter appeared on the screen once more, his expression calm but resolute. "Commander Xerion," he began, "I see you've noticed our flagship. We call her Odyssey. She's the culmination of everything humanity has learned. Our pain, our struggles, and our triumphs. And she's capable of things you can't even imagine." Xerion clenched his jaw, refusing to show weakness. "More threats, Carter? If your ship is so powerful, why haven't you destroyed us already?" Carter's lips curled into a faint smile. "Because destruction isn't our goal, Commander. Survival is. But if you push us any further, you'll see what Odyssey can do." As if to punctuate his words, the Odyssey began to glow. Its hull emitted a pulsating light, and waves of energy rippled outward. The Empire's sensors went haywire, unable to comprehend the data. Then, without warning, the Odyssey fired. But it wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. The energy beam that erupted from the ship wasn't destructive, it was disruptive. It passed through the Empire's ships harmlessly at first, but then systems began to fail. Power cores destabilized, shields collapsed, and engines sputtered to a halt. "Commander," the junior officer shouted, "the beam, it's rewriting our systems. Our ships are shutting down." "How?" Xerion roared. "What kind of weapon is this?" "It's not a weapon." Carter's voice cut through the chaos. "It's a statement. Your technology is advanced, but it's rigid, predictable. We've learned to adapt, to evolve. And now, we're showing you what that means." Xerion's fists tightened. "You think you've won. The Empire doesn't surrender. We will rebuild, we will." "Commander," Carter interrupted, his tone now icy, "if you value the lives of your crew, you'll leave now. This is your final warning." The transmission ended, leaving Xerion staring at the blank screen. The hum of the Odyssey's energy field reverberated through the dominion of stars, a reminder of the power humanity now wielded. "Commander," the junior officer said quietly, "our ships are dead in the water. If the humans wanted to, they could destroy us all right now." Xerion hesitated, his pride warring with the grim reality of the situation. He had never retreated from a battle in his life. But this wasn't a battle, it was a message. And the message was clear. The Empire's dominance was over. "Order the fleet to retreat," he said finally, his voice heavy with defeat. "We'll regroup and reassess. This isn't over." As the remnants of the Empire's fleet began to pull back, the human ships remained motionless, their silent victory a testament to their newfound strength. The Odyssey hovered at the center, a beacon of humanity's defiance and ingenuity. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire had been humbled. And as Xerion watched Earth shrink on the view screen, a chilling thought crossed his mind. The humans weren't just defending their planet. They were preparing for something far greater. The Galactic Empire retreats. The Galactic Empire's once mighty fleet limped away from Earth, its sleek warships now powerless and scattered like defeated prey. The massive Armada that had entered the solar system with arrogance and invincibility was now a shadow of its former self. Ships flickered with failing lights, and the once thrumming engines sputtered in silence. In the vastness of space, the retreat was both silent and shameful. On board the Dominion of Stars, Commander Xerion sat rigid in his chair, his hands gripping the armrests so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The retreat order had been given, and the fleet was falling back toward the outer edges of the system. But the sting of humiliation burned in his chest. He had never known defeat, and now he couldn't escape it. "Status report," Xerion demanded, his voice sharp but laced with fatigue. "Commander," the junior officer began cautiously, "most of the fleet is operational enough to retreat, but over a quarter of our ships remain disabled. We're towing as many as we can, but some may need to be abandoned." Xerion slammed his fist onto the console. "We don't abandon our ships. We don't leave our people behind." "Commander," the officer replied, his voice trembling, "the humans have disabled them completely. There's no way to restore them without exposing the entire fleet to further danger." Before Xerion could respond, another voice interrupted. It was the technician, his face pale as he studied his monitor. "Commander, the human flagship Odyssey is moving." Xerion's head snapped toward the screen. The Odyssey had remained motionless during the Empire's retreat, a silent sentinel watching as they limped away. But now, it was gliding forward, its dark hull shimmering with a faint pulsing energy. It wasn't attacking. It was following. "They're toying with us," Xerion growled. "They want us to know they're still watching." "Commander," the technician said hesitantly, "the Odyssey is sending another transmission." "Put it through," Xerion said, his voice hard. The screen flickered to life, and James Carter appeared once again. This time, his expression was neither mocking nor triumphant. Instead, it was calm, almost sympathetic. "Commander Xerion," Carter began, "I see you've chosen to retreat. A wise decision. You've done your duty for the Empire, and you'll live to fight another day. But let me be clear, if you ever return to Earth with hostile intent, you won't get another chance to leave." Xerion's fists clenched. "You think you can threaten the Galactic Empire? We are the rulers of this galaxy. You're nothing but an upstart species playing with dangerous technology." Carter tilted his head slightly, his expression unchanging. "Commander, you're right about one thing. We are playing with dangerous technology. But the difference between us and you is that we've learned how to adapt, how to survive. Your empire is built on fear and brute force, but humanity. We thrive on the impossible." Xerion glared at the screen, his pride refusing to let him admit defeat. "This isn't over," he hissed. "We'll return, and when we do, you'll regret ever defying the Empire." Carter leaned forward slightly, his gaze unwavering. "Perhaps, but let me leave you with this, Commander. The galaxy is far more complex than you think. You've spent centuries conquering weaker species, but humanity, we're different. We don't just survive, we learn. And if you force us to, we'll make sure no one in the galaxy ever forgets the day the Empire was humbled." The transmission ended, and the bridge fell into an uneasy silence. Xerion stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. The humans hadn't just defeated him. They had planted a seed of doubt in the very foundation of the Empire's power. Their strength wasn't just technological, it was psychological. They had made the Empire question its invincibility. "Commander," the junior officer said softly, "should we prepare a full report for the High Council?" Xerion nodded slowly, his face grim. "Yes, and include every detail about their flagship, their tactics, their technology. The High Council needs to know what we're up against." The officer hesitated, then asked, "Do you think they'll listen?" Xerion didn't answer immediately. He stared out the viewport at the shrinking image of Earth, its blue and green surface a stark contrast to the cold void of space. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and heavy. "They'll listen," he said, "because if they don't, the Empire will fall." As the Dominion of Stars and the remnants of the fleet retreated into the darkness, the Odyssey remained in the distance, a silent reminder of humanity's newfound power. The galaxy had changed, and the Galactic Empire for the first time in millennia, found itself on the defensive. But as Carrion sat in the dim light of the command room, a chilling thought crossed his mind. The humans had shown mercy this time. What if next time they didn't? Humanity's cryptic message. The Galactic Empire's fleet disappeared into the vast emptiness of space, leaving Earth untouched but not unchanged. Humanity had achieved the impossible. They had not only defended their home, but also sent shockwaves through the galaxy. However, as Earth's skies cleared, a quiet unease settled over the planet. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Aboard the Odyssey, James Carter stood in the observation deck, staring at the retreating specks of the Empire's ships. The faint hum of the ship's energy core resonated through the room, a soothing reminder of the power that had turned the tide. Behind him, Captain Helena Drayton entered, her steps light but purposeful. "They're gone," Helena said, her voice steady but tinged with caution. "For now." Carter didn't turn. "And they'll be back." "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked, moving to stand beside him, showing them what we're capable of. Carter finally looked at her, his expression unreadable. "We didn't have a choice. The Empire doesn't respect words. They respect power. But now they know. We're not prey. We're a force they'll think twice about challenging." Helena nodded but didn't look convinced. "They'll come back stronger. The Empire doesn't take humiliation lightly." Carter smiled faintly. "And when they do, we'll be ready." Across Earth, the mood was triumphant. The media buzzed with news of humanity's unexpected victory, and the streets were filled with celebrations. People cheered, waved flags, and shared stories of resilience. But beneath the surface, scientists, engineers, and military leaders worked tirelessly, knowing the Empire's retreat was only the beginning. In a hidden facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a council of Earth's greatest minds gathered. Carter joined them, his face illuminated by the holographic projection of the galaxy spinning slowly in the center of the room. "They'll regroup," Carter said, addressing the room. "The Empire won't make the same mistake twice. They underestimated us because they didn't understand what humanity is capable of. Next time, they won't hold back." Dr. Lai Chen, a physicist and one of the architects of the Odyssey, nodded. "We've bought time, but we need to use it wisely. The Odyssey was just the beginning. If we're going to survive another attack, we need more ships, better defenses, and allies." "Allies?" General Marcus Wolf, a hardened military leader, raised an eyebrow. "You mean the same species that bowed to the Empire for centuries? What makes you think they'll fight with us?" "Because now they have hope," Carter replied, his voice firm. "The galaxy has seen that the Empire isn't invincible. If we can show them that resistance isn't futile, they might rise up. And if they don't," Wolf challenged. "Then we stand alone," Carter said simply. "But we stand." Far beyond Earth, in the halls of the Empire's High Council, the fallout of the defeat rippled like a storm. Counselors, dressed in flowing robes of black and gold, argued and shouted, their voices echoing in the grand chamber. At the center of the room, Supreme Chancellor Vorn sat in silence, his face a mask of calm fury. Commander Xerion stood before the council, recounting the events of the battle. His voice was steady, but the weight of failure hung heavy on his shoulders. "You mean to tell us," one counselor sneered, "that a species from a backwater planet disabled an entire fleet without firing a single lethal shot?" Xerion clenched his fists but kept his voice measured. "Yes, and if we underestimate them again, it will be the last mistake we make." Vorn raised a hand, silencing the room. His cold eyes bore into Xerion. "Do you believe they can be defeated?" "With the right strategy and sufficient resources, yes," Xerion replied. "But it won't be easy. Their technology is different, adaptive. It changes faster than we can analyze it." Vorn leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Then we must evolve as well." Back on Earth, a new message was sent into the stars. Broadcast across all known frequencies, it was a declaration, not of war, but of warning. The message, spoken by Carter, was short and deliberate. We didn't seek this conflict, but we won't run from it. The Galactic Empire has ruled through fear for centuries. But those days are over. Humanity stands ready, not just to defend ourselves, but to fight for freedom. For every species in the galaxy. If you seek to challenge us again, be prepared to face what you've unleashed. The message spread like wildfire, reaching distant planets and hidden colonies. Across the galaxy, whispers began to grow, of rebellion, of unity, of a species that had dared to laugh in the face of the Empire. As the Odyssey hovered silently above Earth, its crew looked to the stars, knowing the battle was far from over. Humanity had proven its strength, but the galaxy was vast, and the challenges ahead were immense. Still, one truth remained unshakable. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity, and humanity had only just begun to rise.